Hello, everybody, and welcome to another special edition of Rowing Chat. I'm Rebecca Caro, and today we're interviewing a key rowing business who has come to our attention. And what makes me so excited about this is the sort of innovation that's coming into our sport from people like Cameron. Cameron, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Rebecca. Great to connect with you. Yeah, excited for the chat.
Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your background in rowing, Cameron.
Yeah, so I rowed for it was 11 years internationally. Started off at school level, and that was my introduction in the sport, and really enjoyed it. It was a good fit sort of for what I really enjoyed as a sort of sport in its competitive nature, and then progressed into the Australian team, and between 2001 and 2012 rowed on the Australian team and went to 2 Olympic Games. Was lucky enough to win a silver medal in the men's 4 at Beijing, and rowed in the men's 8 in London, and caught a time on my elite rowing career in 2012 at the London Olympics. But I sort of, as an elite athlete, elite rower, I had a sort of awesome time in terms of all the experiences I got to sort of do at the top level of our sport, and feel really sort of privileged with sort of all the opportunities I got, the people I raced with and raced against, and it was a dream as a kid to go to the Olympic Games. I got to go to 2, and so really sort of special experience.
And after that, you founded a rowing business called 776bc.com. What is 776?
Well, it's a good starting point. So our focus was to work with Olympic sports, and predominantly with sort of rowing was our foundation sport. And 776 BC actually references the year of the first Olympic Games, which was a really nice link into sort of our sort of starting point of where we wanted the business to focus on. And I mean, the interesting thing is not a lot of people know the sort of starting sort of point of where the Olympics really sort of began. There's the modern Olympics, which began back up in 1896, but 776 BC was where it actually all sort of started, and it started from a very similar motivation to stop war between sort of tribes and different sort of territories, and create a sporting game where you could compete and not kill each other. And so we thought it was a nice tie into something that was special and unique, and it's been a really sort of distinctive name that once people know what it means and sort of the reference behind it, then it's got a really nice link into sort of how we sort of or where we focus for a business.
So your business is a clothing business. What gave you the idea that we needed another clothing business?
Well, I mean, it was a lot to do with sort of my experiences as an athlete, and you spend. I mean, particularly in the sport of rowing, like you wear your clothing very hard, and you're sort of you got a long sort of training sessions, a lot of sort of training sessions over a week, and so you get to really experience product that works and product that doesn't work, and the thing that we sort of also reflected on was the preparation that athletes put in towards going to an Olympic Games, and the time and energy that sort of sits there. We wanted to, bring to market a brand that sort of, reflected that kind of intensity of preparation. So we wanted the products to really match that kind of intensity that athletes put into their sort of performance, and then sort of for them to have product that performed at the very sort of top stage, that sort of performed in terms of all the things that you'd like, and comfort. It sort of performs well in hot conditions. It breathes well, and we sort of thought, from my experiences wearing a whole lot of different product, there was certainly opportunities to bring to the rowing market in particular some really sort of technical products that performed at a sort of top level, and introduce new technical performance features which hadn't been sort of explored in rowing yet. So look, it was a sort of a concept out of my athlete days of experiencing a lot of different products, and then that was the starting point, and it's built from there.
Fantastic. Now pull out of your bag. What are the top 3 bestsellers that 776 BC have?
Well, I mean, we're known for our rowing products, and our best seller sort of would be our Motion Pro rowing suit. And I've got an example here behind me, but I mean, I'll get that in shot in a better way. One of the really sort of interesting products we've developed over the last 3 to 4 years is so our rowing suit was our sort of hero product. We wanted to make it super comfortable, but then perform in the elite sort of level in terms of the comfort, wicking sort of ability to really sort of wick away sweat. There's some really unique features that we put into our rowing suit. So it's got a carbon mesh back panel, so it breathes really nicely. And more recently, we've put a silicone leg band at the bottom of the leg, which just holds the suit in place. We know that's sort of a really important one. You'll see sometimes a lot of rowers where the legs right up and it gets quite uncomfortable in the middle of a race. And so we spent almost 2 years developing what we thought was the really perfect leg band, just to keep it so it felt comfortable with it, but then held in place. And the feedback, we worked with the Australian rowing team on that development, and the feedback's been fantastic in terms of that sort of feature that we've put into the rowing suit. But on top of that, the motion design was all about looking at how your body moves, and some simple lines and markings to sort of reference your correct sort of posture and sort of technique. And as a coaching tool, we think that's a really nice feature because it just makes it easier to see how your athletes are moving in the boat. And with rowing being such a technical sport, and then you're trying to match up your technique to other individuals in the crew, to be able to easily identify that with your eye with some simple designs in the rowing suit was just a simple concept that we sort of landed on about 5 years ago and sort of developed from there. And it fits so neatly into rowing. Like, it's, as I was saying, it's a very technical sport. It's a synchronized sport in terms of what you're trying to do with the others in the crew, and so the idea of having these visual markings, just to make it more effective to see what your rowers are doing was a simple win. And so that's been a really really well received innovation that we've brought into our products. And so the rowing suit is our number one. I suppose we've really focused to begin with on the on-water aspects of our rowing range and what sort of is really important to the rowers. So, I mean, the lightweight base layer, which it's got a titanium ion fabric, which means that, sounds very technical, what it's intended to do is really modulate with your temperature. So in super hot conditions, it makes you feel cool. And then when sort of it does start to get a bit cooler, it actually feels sort of warm, and it feels like a nice layer to wear. And so that sort of product's been a really sort of core staple of the rowing community that we supply to and sell to, is this lightweight base layer, and it's sort of a perfect all-weather garment, particularly on sort of race day, but for all the sort of in-between training sessions, and when it does first thing in the morning to put on a long sleeve, that sort of works for you. It's got UV 50 plus features too, so sort of in the sort of scorching sun, and I've been out there plenty of times where you get out 40 minutes before your race, and so you're exposed to a lot of sort of UV rays when you're out in the water, and also the reflection of the rays off the water. Then you need to make sure that you're wearing products that give you that protection. And the great thing about this fabric is it's super lightweight, but it gives you those protective elements against the sun. So that's been a cool product that rowers love out of our range. And then finally, the rowing short. I mean, we think sort of the rowing short is probably the most practical item that you can sort of have in your range. We've got a whole range of rowing shorts. It's interesting where you go around the world, it gets referenced in terms of, it's a rowing short. We call it a performance short. In the US, they call it a trowel. But this is a product that you can wear in the boat, you can wear on the ergo, you can wear in the gym. Really sort of great for everything that you do in the sport of rowing, and so that's been sort of
So Cameron's just retrieving his microphone there. I definitely agree with the concept of having stripes down the side of your row suit, because when we were getting videoed, the coach always seemed to pick on the people who already had stripes down the side of their gear, because they could see much more clearly how they were moving.
Yeah, sorry, we have a malfunction with our setup here. So. Yeah, look, that's just been a great feature for sort of, all the sort of things that you look at within the sport of rowing. And so, particularly in the training environment, that's sort of been a great sort of asset for sort of coaches to have, gear that, carries the lines, which sort of sits within our motion range. So, yeah.
And obviously, you're a production company, Cameron. You've already hinted that you have long research and development cycles. What's new coming up over the horizon?
Well, as I was saying, like, we sort of have focused on the on-water performance, race day aspect of our range to begin with. And the exciting part of sort of what we've been developing, particularly, COVID and what happened last year, was sort of, a lot of time where you get to sort of just work on product development, which you haven't sort of, usually product development occurs alongside all the other things you do within your business. But last year we got a great opportunity to go deep with some of the products that we're developing, and we wanted to look at the warmer parts of our range. So, particularly, in the middle of sort of winter, and when you're rowing in, I mean, we're fortunate here. We're based in Melbourne, Australia, and it doesn't get too cold. People complain about the weather, but it doesn't get too cold here. But particularly in Europe and the US, wearing warmer sort of layers is just critical to be able to get out there and still train. And so we've got some really exciting outerwear parts of our range that we'll be launching over this next 6 to 12 months. A rowing vest, which, we've got a couple of different sort of levels of that, a lightweight one, but then a sort of a warmer sort of vest that, can be used in those really sort of cool mornings. A performance merino range. Merino is sort of something that we're sort of reasonably familiar with here in Australia and New Zealand, but across in sort of Europe and US, it's probably a fabric that is less sort of used at a performance level. We've got a performance merino, which is just a beautiful material in terms of all the performance characteristics. It's a very unique material, so that breathes really effectively. It's lightweight, so it means that you're not carrying a lot of bulk around, but you can stay warm. And the merino fabric that we've developed is something that is for on water, so that even when it gets wet, it wicks away very quickly, that moisture in the fabric. So it's a really unique fabric that we'll be developing a range out of the next sort of 6 to 12 months. We'll be launching that, and that's sort of, we think that's a perfect fit for what most rowers will need as they sort of, train through the winter months and need a layer sort of that sort of protects them and keeps them warm, but they want to be able to still move. And one of our core tenets with our product is we want every piece of our product comfortable, so you can still move really freely and easily. And so we think that's just a critical one. There's a lot of products that you can put on that feel okay when you're standing still, and then as soon as you start to move, don't feel quite right. And I mean, the interesting sort of thing within the sport of rowing is that your range of movement is quite extreme, and you're sort of going through, a huge range of movement with your shoulders and torso and legs. And so having product that sort of really allows you the freedom of movement is just a core piece of how we develop our products. And so the merino range that we're sort of bringing to market, that's because of its lightweight sort of nature. We think that's a perfect fit for the rowing, the rower that sort of rows through winter, which, as I was saying, it gets cold here, but we know it gets a lot colder in other places in the world.
And 776BC is on the rowing directory, which is rowing.chat, and you go to directory. Cameron, tell people where else they can find you apart from on the website.
Well, if you're in Melbourne, please stop into our South Melbourne store. So we've got a setup here. It's called our Performance Lab, and so you can come in and check out the range here. We turn up to a lot of events. Obviously, we're a bit more limited with our event calendar at the moment, given sort of the world and sort of. But what's nice to see, we turn up at the Yarra River, which is the main rowing river here in Melbourne, and there was a great event on the weekend, and the events are starting to sort of kick back in, and there's people out there racing again, and so it's awesome to see that kind of activity kick in again. But yeah, so our store here, and then sort of events, but yeah, I mean, online's probably the best place to check out our range, and then, you know, for anyone that does have any questions, we love to have a conversation about our gear, and anyone that's sort of interested to find out more, so shoot us an email at info@776bc.com, and we can sort of, you know, answer any questions that you have. But yeah, there's a number of sort of different ways that you can come and chat to us. And if you're in Melbourne, as I said, you know, hopefully international travel starts back sort of at some stage, but we're always sort of excited to have people in our performance lab.
Cameron McKenzie-McHarg, it's been brilliant hearing about your innovations and the bright ideas that you're bringing to rowing clothing around the world. Thank you very much for joining me today on this special rowing chat for rowing businesses. If you've got a rowing business that you'd like to showcase, go to rowing.chat and search for directory on the menu, and you can obviously browse the businesses we've already got there, and you can list your own business. See you soon.